Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to this very spontaneous FAQ video. Just now, I was on the superstar space. So, for those of you who may know, might not know, I have on my website what I call the superstar space. It is Astrofabulous Superstar at astrofabulous.com or nadiashaw.com. And it is essentially a community of superstars, as I like to think of them. They're my superstars and very cherished to me, as are all my friends and fans, of course. But it is in the superstar space that superstars get access to expanded and exclusive videos each and every week. And as part of that, they get to comment, they get to ask questions, they get feedback as part of watching these exclusive videos that are created just for superstars on my website. Again, nadiashaw.com. Anyways, a superstar just asked a question. I won't say the name because I really care about maintaining it as a sacred space, as a safe space where people feel that they're gathered to affirm love and wisdom in the world and to support each other, and that's it. And I was asked a question. It was in the comments, but of course everybody has their handle, right? And I was asked about further clarity on something, and I wanted to make a very quick video to talk about this. And what I was asked about was because all the video scopes, like if you watch my video scopes on YouTube, the monthly video scopes, I talk about life and love. And so I do the same thing with the superstar videos every week. I talk about life and love. And, somebody said, I listen to you every week and I get really excited, but I've been single for 10 years. So, how can I take the horoscopes if every week you're talking about these opportunities in love? So a couple of thoughts came to mind that I wanted to share very quickly with you guys. So one is, of course, the natal chart. The natal chart, which is your birth chart, which is essentially a chart looking at the sky around you at the moment of your first breath. So it is the moment of your first breath that your soul enters your body and you become connected to everyone and everything. And the astrology chart is a symbol of that. And that's why astrologers, when they make your chart, or if you go onto one of the many websites out there, very popular website is astro.com. You go to extended chart selection, you enter in your date, your time, and your place of birth, because astrologers want to know that exact moment. What was the sky around you at that exact moment when you took that first breath? And based on that, we're able to give a lot more specific advice. As much as I think horoscopes are very valuable for a whole lot of reasons, I really love the philosophical assertion that horoscopes make, which is that the universe is wise and loving, which is that we live in a universe that is alive in meaning and rich in purpose, and that you are a part of that. You are a part of this unfolding of the cosmos. And I love affirming that. And so I think that horoscopes can be an incredible omen that certainly can guide people, guided me, that got me even on this path of astrology to begin with. And at the same time, a lot can be said by looking at your natal chart. There are certain markers in a natal chart that will suggest that this person may choose to spend extended periods of time solo. So a couple of things come to mind off the top of my head, for example, and again, a skilled astrologer goes a really long way. Your own interest in diving into your natal chart can go a really long way as well. But one thing that comes to mind is I remember way back in the day, before I became a professional astrologer, I've been full-time astrology for 11 years now. And one of the authors recently passed away that I really loved back in the day, and her name is Donna Cunningham. I really loved her books. I learned a lot from her books many, many years ago. And again, she recently passed away, so lots of love and gratitude to her soul, of course. She talked about how a person who has a lot of sixth house planets, okay, so again, if you're familiar with your chart, this will make sense, but the astrology chart is divided into 12 houses, which is essentially 12 areas of life, archetypal areas of life, if you will. And so if you've got a lot of planets in the sixth house, Donna Cunningham believed that it meant that you found a lot of fulfillment in the day. So in actually being present in the day and doing something well, the person could find a lot of satisfaction in that, and so they would be less likely to more actively seek a partner, because they're okay by themselves, right? They don't feel that sense of motivation as much as someone else might. At the same time, there are certain markers in a chart that can speak very strongly to being motivated to having that one-on-one partnership. For example, having strong seventh house placements, having the ruler of the seventh house, which essentially is, you look at the sign that's on the cusp that begins the seventh house, what is that planet doing in the chart? If that planet is on one of the angles, so it's on the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house, or the 10th house, that person becomes much more likely to be motivated to actually be in a relationship, and as a result will more likely have more relationships. Also, I do think that there are certain very private parts of the sky, of the chart, rather, so the 12th house, the 4th house, and the 8th house. So for their own reasons, the 12th house is one of isolation. And so especially if you have got a a very a planet that represents something about love, like Venus, like Mars, right? Because Mars is really about connecting with other people physically. It's about being awakened on a level of body that happens through being attracted to another person. So if you've got Mars in the 12th house and it's a part of the sky that's isolation, it's said that this person would probably go through different periods of celibacy at different points in life. Having a love related planet, so the love planets, as I said, Venus and Mars. The moon is a really big love planet as well, because the moon is and I have really found this, especially I think that as people get older, the moon is your comfort zone. It's where you really find a sense of peace within yourself. So if you have the moon in a very quiet part of the sky, the 12th house, the 4th house, or the 8th house, then these are parts of the sky that speak to having a need, an emotional need, like finding peace when you have that time to yourself. So someone with a moon in the 12th or the 4th or the 8th is going to be less likely to actually do the things that are required to meet somebody else. And of course, there's the 8th house as well. And the 8th house is, the thing is, the 8th house really is about seeing what's behind the surface, seeing that life can be complex. And I have found that people with very strong 8th house placements may at times go through periods where they are single because they know that love can be an experience that isn't always roses, right? They have that understanding that sometimes love involves having to look at yourself very deeply, and that can be a painful process. There can be some trust issues as well when you've got very strong 8th house placements. So not only the love planets, but when I say strong 8th house placements, I think about what are the dominant, right? Really, what are the dominant planets in a chart, the personal planets in particular. The outer planets, so the personal planets are Mars, are Venus, Mercury, the moon, and the sun. And so if you've got a lot of these planets in the 8th house, right, then we've got the outer planets, which tend to be a little bit more generational. You express it in your own unique way in a particular area of your sky. But especially the personal planets, having significant, important energies in the 8th house is going to suggest that very strong emotions are part of the life path, and you may need some time on your own from time to time to really figure it out, to really let someone else go energetically before you let someone else in. So that's one part of it, right? Is what's happening in the chart that suggests that this person will spend time on their own, or at least be motivated to spend time on their own. And then we look at how can we change the energy. If someone is saying, I really do want a relationship, of course, your intention goes such a long way. And this idea of how your consciousness is a huge factor, if not the dominant factor, as to how your chart is experienced in your life, is realized in your life, is something that astrologers have been articulating for such a long time. And especially when we consider how more and more, as we move more and more into the modern world, how our free will, like we really are so blessed to be able to exercise our free will. So of course, our consciousness then allows us to use those energies in the chart and to bring them forward in a way where we're actually using our free will to our advantage, to our stated intentions. So I think about Alan Leo, esoteric astrology. Like this is way back at the turn of the last century, in the late 1800s, was part of esoteric astrology. And his book, Esoteric Astrology, talks about this as well. Your consciousness determines how that chart is realized. So it goes a very long way to consider if you really want to be in a relationship. That's what it really comes down to. Do you really want to be in a relationship? What does that mean to you to actually be in a relationship? Are you really wanting to share on that level? Are you really wanting to have that type of constant intimacy, that type of, your life isn't just about you anymore. Like there's someone else that you consult with every step of the way with all the decisions you make. There are some people, there are some souls who love that, who thrive on that. And then there are some for whom to go through that process is actually something that they have to be very intent on and isn't always easy. It takes some practice. It takes having a partner who would be patient with that process as well, or it takes finding the right balance. And some partners together can provide that to each other better than other two people together might. So how do we change the energy if we look at it from an astrological perspective? Well, first I would say, before we even look at the astrology, to strive to be honest with yourself if that's what you really want. If you really want that, because I think a lot of people would end up being very surprised, but when you really want that, it's amazing how, those chances that you take when you want to be with another person, when you want to be in a bond, they are not so big. If you really want that, you do the things that are required. You're willing to flirt. You're willing to own that desire and go out there and meet people and be active and to learn about yourself in that context, knowing it is part of the process. The more people you meet, the more likely it is that you're going to meet that person who's going to be right. And every person prepares you for the next and the next. So how willing are you to engage in that process? Like if it makes your eyes roll to have to meet another person who may not be the right person, well, then that may not be an endeavor that you are ready to truly undertake. If it is something that's fun for you, that's exciting for you, like, oh wow, I could go out, I could meet new people, right? I could go to this environment, I could enjoy myself, and then maybe I'll get to interact with all kinds of different people. That is the right line of thinking. Like that is the right state of spirit to be in. And if you're not in that state of spirit, that's really okay. There are some markers that come along in a chart from time to time, mainly when the North Node is activated in powerful ways. It can suggest that a lover or a partner or a soulmate just show up. Like you really don't have to do anything. They just kind of show up for you. Absolutely, that does happen. But those times when we have those types of powerful activations of, as I said, like the North Node, for example, because the nodes are very karmic. The nodes are about what the soul desired to do with this lifetime. And they're about a doorway, really. They are doorways. I think of them as doorways, where the South Node indicates people leaving, the North Node, people entering. Having your North Node activated in very powerful ways doesn't happen that often. Like, yes, you will have some of the personal planets move over your natal North Node, maybe once a year or so. And you will have the moon move over every 28 and a half days. But when you think about like the outer planets, for example, and you think about what planets rule the 7th house cusp, the 5th house cusp, it may not be that often that you get that experience. And so what do you do in the meantime? Because lots of people don't have a lot of conjunctions to their North Node, but they're always in a relationship. A little bit of willingness goes such a long way for them to be in a relationship. And so again, natally, if you've got those very strong 7th house indicators there, 7th house activation, 5th house as well to a certain extent, all else being equal, of course, right? You could have strong 5th house activations, but then you've got some very strong 8th house natal placements. That could kind of negate it a little bit. Again, it takes a little bit of practice. It takes a little bit of sitting with yourself and asking yourself, how is your chart being revealed to you, being realized through you to understand where it is that you are right now in love and your readiness to know love. But here's some suggestions I can make, right? Just right off the bat, if you want love and you know that you want that, or at the very least you want to be in the game, right? That's always a very good place to be. I think it's better to say that I want to be in the game rather than to say I want the great love of my life to show up. The great love of your life is much more likely to show up if you're in the game. And what I mean by that is you're willing to know love. You're willing to learn about yourself in love. So how do we do that? Well, I do think that you want to look at what's happening with Venus in the chart and go to your Venus. Go to your moon. Like these are the very strong indicators in the chart that will allow you to start accessing an energy of attraction. And if you are so inclined, go to your Mars as well. Mars is a very physical energy though, so keep that in mind. It's if you're going to your Mars, then essentially what you're doing is you are wanting to meet people to connect with more on a physical level. Venus has to do with feeling loved, feeling beautiful, being in your beauty and the energy of your beauty. And the moon, of course, is your comfort zone, wanting to find people and be with people who you feel truly comfortable with. So I would say look at those placements. So what do I mean by that when I say go to your Mars, go to your Venus? What sign is your Venus in? Start there. What sign is your Venus in? So someone who has Venus in Aries is going to think of love and understand what love is very differently than someone who has their Venus in Scorpio, for example, right? The sign of Aries, remember, wherever Venus is, that's where you feel most beautiful. So you look at the sign, you look at the house. Let's say your Venus is in the 6th house and it's in Aries. So you are going to be somebody who's going to feel most beautiful, who's going to access an energy of love and attraction. And this is beauty. I'm not just talking about physical beauty. That's part of beauty, but there's so much more to beauty than just what's happening on a physical level. If your Venus is in the 6th house in Aries, so this is going to be somebody who feels most beautiful when you are feeling like your days are useful and full, like you are doing something where you're good at it and you're getting better at it, that whether it's a workplace environment, whether it's a health environment, these are the types of environments that are going to be where you're able to bring forward your Venus energy that much more easily. And if it's in Aries, then it has to be something that you feel really passionate about, that makes you feel like you absolutely love it, that makes you feel like a little kid. So someone who has Venus in Aries in the 6th, I would say you have to have work that feels like play, that makes you feel like you are in your joy. And that is when your beauty comes forward and you're able to attract that much more easily within that space. But of course, it's holistic. If you have that in your life, you're able to bring that forward and have it bless so many different areas of life. You're able to carry that energy out into other areas of life. Let's say you have your Venus also in the 6th house, but in Scorpio. Scorpio is a very different energy than Aries, whereas Aries is a very immediate, it's about the adrenaline rush, it's about the joy, it's about childhood. Scorpio is much more calculating. It's about power, it's about truth, it's about that deep perspective, strategic truth that can play out with this energy. And so you are going to be somebody who has work that is probing, that allows you to solve mysteries, whether it is as a therapist, whether it is as detective work, right? Whether it is as a writer who is really exploring a certain subject. So you're bringing forward that expertise, but at the same time, you are diving deep in to understand more deeply. And also the Scorpio energy is one that desires the real, that desires something really authentic, something that feels substantive. And so just having a day job isn't going to work for somebody who has a Scorpio Venus in the 6th house. They want something where they really feel like they are an agent for change or an agent of truth in their own way. And of course, Scorpio, as I said, because it has to do with power, There's a financial element to that as well. So one very literal way that this energy can be realized is working in a bank or working with, big investments, whatever those companies are called. Obviously, it's not my forte, but these are the types of organizations like hedge funds or mutual funds and things like that that you may want to look at as a way to tap into that energy. Now that's a huge spectrum, but that's the thing with archetypal energies, is that they tend to speak to something else, and they represent a spectrum that ultimately is on the same field. So let's take it with Mars, okay? Let's say your Mars is in Gemini, for example. Let's say you've got Mars in Gemini. Well, you're going to be somebody who's very attracted to, very turned on by smart people. And turned on, or the way that you flirt rather, because that's what Mars is, the way that you flirt is through wit, is through your words, and you want someone who can match you on that level. So it helps to be engaged in activities like that, like join a writer's group, join a book club, somewhere where you actually can read things that are of interest to you and then talk about it and joke about it. And find interesting ways to articulate what it is that you've come to understand. So these are some examples. The moon as well, as I said, very important in love, because the moon is really where you feel at home. And ultimately, that's really what love is feeling so comfortable, so at ease with another person. A big part of how we understand a soulmate has to do with, I think, someone who's activating your moon in a very harmonious kind of way. So you look at your moon. What sign is your moon in? If you're somebody who has your moon in Aquarius, then it's going to be very hard to be with somebody who likes a lot of routine, likes a lot of stability. There's going to be a part of you that really always wants to be surprised, who feels like life is changing. The stability has to be the love and the support that you feel, but there's got to be like new ideas, new stimulations. And again, Aquarius is an air sign, so you feel at home with somebody who you truly can talk to, who truly can be a friend to you, someone who is able to hold a conversation with you and be very interesting and help you to think about things in new ways. Now contrast that with somebody with a moon in Virgo, for example, right? Virgo is a sign of stability and consistency. You are going to want somebody who in some way makes you feel like they pay attention to the little details, that they notice things about you. These are things that are going to make you feel that much more at ease with this person. And also, I know it's a little bit of a stereotype, but if you've got your moon in Virgo, you really can't, it's very unlikely you're going to be with somebody who's got very messy habits, or at least feel at home and feel comfortable with someone who's got very messy habits. You have a certain part of you that wants things to be very organized. And so using that energy, thinking about where is it that you can bring your moon. If you've got your moon, let's say, let's try a different house. Let's try the 11th house, right? Your moon is in the 11th house of friends. You've got to make sure that you are spending time with friends, or you're involved in groups in some way that allow you to bring that part of you that either needs to be an expert, that needs to feel like you're really good at something, a group that doesn't feel chaotic, that has a certain structure to it, that meets in a space where there is some cleanliness, there is some organization, or even has to do with organizing. These are things that are going to end up being very fulfilling for you and are going to allow you to feel like you are accessing that energy of your moon. And as you access that, you're more likely to attract more experiences that honor your moon. So these are some ways that you actually can look at your chart and understand more fully what it is that you truly want, but also what it is that you can do to start cultivating an energy of love. It starts by getting very clear about where you actually are and what it is that you actually want, because, as I said, and I'll leave you with this, someone who truly wants to be in a relationship will do things differently than someone who isn't sure, or someone who has mixed feelings, or someone who was really hurt in the past and is still carrying some of that, hasn't truly let that go, or someone who is very conscious of the fact that love isn't always an easy breezy passage, that sometimes love can really make us look at ourselves in ways that aren't easy. And so those are two very different ways of approaching love, of approaching the world. If you're with somebody and you're totally fine and you're getting along great, and then you realize that this person may like you, they may be an option for you, and then you feel a wall or something coming up, that tells you something about your readiness to know love. But there's really nothing like having that sense of self-knowing that can put you on the path towards the love that you truly desire. And there's nothing like that self-knowing that at least lets you know what the work may be to get you where it is that you want, and whether or not you're willing to even do that work at this time. Either way, there's no right or wrong. It's very important, I think, for people not to want something because they think they should want it or because it's expected of them to want it. If you're happy right where you are, well, that is one of the surest ways to ensure that you attract people who are only going to affirm that happiness for you. I will stop there. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so grateful for it. And thank you to my friends and fans, and of course the superstars who ask such great questions. So grateful for it as well. Again, you can check me out in the superstar space at astrofabulous.com or nadiashaw.com, and here on YouTube as well. Well, thank you so much for watching. Until we connect again, take care.